The film begins at a power plant outside the city. All the employees working there are celebrating the birthday of a fellow employee. Then they see a mysterious shadow moving on the security camera. When an employee goes to investigate, a mysterious creature attacks him. He tries to get into an office in a wounded condition. But soon, a herd of creatures in the entire building starts killing everyone. These mysterious creatures begin to appear all over the world as a solar eclipse occurs. Millions of people are killed and major cities are destroyed. This day is called Judgment Day in the news. The government sends military soldiers to fight these mysterious creatures, which lasts until the end of the solar eclipse. Millions of lives and a lot of resources are wasted in this battle. But eventually, all the mysterious creatures are killed, leading to a new beginning for the human race on Earth. It is later revealed that the creatures were coming out of a large hall built on the ground, called the Gate. And a protective shield is built around the gate, in the hope that these creatures can be avoided in the future. 15 years have passed since this incident and now people are usually busy with their lives. Later in the story, we meet David, who works in the security of a company and has to go to a line to clean up dead creatures. But even so, he gets very little money from the company. Meanwhile, we see Laura, who works as a teacher at a local school, who was once David's wife but is now divorced. Laura's colleague teacher Milton likes Laura and he often asks her out on a date. But today Laura finally accepts his invitation. Laura has a son named Tyler. Tyler goes to meet his girlfriend Mandy, where Mandy is quite worried about the upcoming solar eclipse. Tyler says you don't need to be afraid, because there have been many solar eclipses in the past 15 years, but nothing has ever happened. The scene changes and we see a military officer Garrett, who is called to the gate because they have detected an activity at a major site. Garrett arrives there and checks all the security systems, and due to a small mistake of his, the entire protective shield is damaged. On the other hand, in the city, David goes to pick up Tyler from Laura's house. When Tyler is focused on video games, David and Laura go to the kitchen and start arguing. And we learn the reason for their divorce. Actually, when the creatures came to Earth last time, Laura was pregnant at that time, but David was not with her then. And Laura has never forgiven him for this. Tyler stops their fight and leaves with his father. At night, David's uncle calls him and tells him that tomorrow will be a new Judgment Day. And he asks him to reach his shelter with his family before the solar eclipse starts to escape from the creatures. Tyler watches the news on TV where he gets worried seeing that millions of dead fish are visible on beaches everywhere. These are one of the signs that were seen 15 years ago. Meanwhile, a creature is seen coming out of the gate. At the same time, Laura calls David and says that I have seen the news. Bring Tyler home because Milton has arranged shelter for us. But David refuses him because he wants Tyler to be with him, which starts to argue between the two. Meanwhile, Tyler gets a message on his phone and he quietly leaves the room. And when David comes to the room, he finds only a note there, with Mandy's number written on it. On the other hand, Milton tells Laura that we have to hurry, because the shelter is constantly filling up with people. Laura tells that Tyler is gone somewhere, then Milton tracks Tyler's location with his phone number with the help of a special software. Software finds Tyler is in a park. In fact, Tyler is with his girlfriend Mandy, because Mandy's parents have left her. That's why she is very scared. Tyler promised her that he would never leave her. Just then the sound of someone screaming is heard and a huge flock of birds is seen in the sky. That means the creatures are going to attack soon. People start running here and there in fear and there is a traffic jam on the roads, as everyone is trying to get out of the city with their families. David gets stuck in a traffic jam, but when he sees the birds flying, he leaves his car and sets out on foot to find Tyler. Meanwhile, the employees at the gate hear a strange noise. Just then a creature attacks them. Garrett runs away from there, while the rest of the soldiers open fire on the creature, but their bullets seem to have no effect on the creature. Soon the emergency siren starts ringing in the entire city. David finally finds Tyler and Mandy, and luckily Laura also arrives there with Milton, after which everyone gets into the car and leaves from there. David says that we should go to the place told by my uncle, but Milton says that we should go to the shelter built by the government. But soon their car gets stuck in a traffic jam, but Milton somehow takes them to the shelter. But when they reach there, they find out that the shelter is full and only women and children are allowed inside. When David tells Laura, Mandy, and Tyler to go inside, Tyler refuses, but when David tells him forcefully, he goes. But as soon as he goes inside, he immediately runs back. Seeing him, Laura and Mandy also come back. Meanwhile, the shelter also fills up. Now those people try to get out of the city by sitting back in the car. And then an earthquake comes and now the solar eclipse has begun. All the people get out of the cars and as soon as it gets dark, the creatures start attacking people and killing them brutally. This scene was also seen 15 years ago. David forces everyone to leave the city as soon as possible. Southwest He goes to drive, but Milton stops him because the car was his. He says, "I know how we can escape." They argue about this. But then a flying creature comes and takes Milton away. Seeing this, Laura gets scared, so David takes her in the car and starts taking her out of the city. On the way, everyone discusses who might have created these creatures. Or maybe God sends them to Earth. Just then their car's fuel runs out, after which David gets out of the car and starts looking for another car. When he goes inside a car, the driver hiding in the back seat pulls him down and points with his finger in front because there is a dangerous creature there that is roaming around the cars. But fortunately, he did not see them and he went ahead and started eating the dead body lying in the other car. Then David quietly and carefully takes the car to his family. Laura, Tyler, and Mandy try to get out of one car and get into the other, but then the creature sees them and starts moving towards them. Then the driver of the car gets out and starts throwing salt on the creature, which makes the creature stop for a while. Then he attacks it again and kills it. Then everyone escapes from the place and finally David reaches the place told by his uncle, which is actually a concrete bunker. But its doors are closed, everyone starts screaming and banging on the door. David starts requesting to open the door by seeing in the CCTV, but no one opens the door because they did not know that someone had pointed a gun at David's uncle's head. Just then creatures start coming from all sides through the hills. David takes a hold of an iron rod to protect his family, then the door opens and everyone goes inside the bunker. Where David meets his uncle and his wife, and Garrett is also present there, which surprises David. Garrett says that his father used to work in the military with David's uncle. That is why they called him here. But David sees that Garrett has a gun, which makes David suspicious of him. Later, everyone sits down to eat together and they see on the monitor how the creatures are constantly trying to break down the door, which makes everyone quite worried. David tells them that on the day of the Last Judgment Day, he was with his friends and when the creatures attacked them, he hid in a salt water pond and he could hear the screams of his dying friends. He tells them that the creatures' bodies burn in the sunlight, so they come out in the dark during a solar eclipse. Meanwhile, David's uncle points David to a knife and gestures for him to hide it. Then Garrett says, "You all rest, I'll go and keep an eye," but David's uncle forbids anyone from sleeping and invites them to play cards. After that, he gestures towards David, but Garrett understands his gesture and pulls out his gun, so David has to put down the knife. Then Garrett reveals that David's uncle was not allowing him to stay here, but his wife Stella took pity on him and then they allowed him to stay here, which saved Garrett's life and now he can kill anyone to save his life. Then Tyler attacks him from behind and tries to snatch the gun from him, but Garrett throws him away. Suddenly, the creature's voices outside stop, then a small creature jumps through the window and bites Stella's neck. David's uncle separates the creature from Stella's body and quickly throws salt on it. David takes advantage of the opportunity and punches Garrett, snatching his gun from him. He tries to shoot the creature, but it dodges all the bullets. Then Mandy stabs the creature to death with a knife. After that, they tie Garrett up with ropes. But Stella is bleeding profusely from her neck and needs medical attention. Suddenly, they see a large creature on the monitor. It is repeatedly trying to break down the door. After that, they decide to leave the bunker. Garrett says that the tunnel below the bunker leads to the hills, where his car is parked. They can use his car to escape. No one believes Garrett, but they agree because they need to save their lives. They take their weapons and leave the bunker through the tunnel. Stella is having trouble walking because the infection is spreading throughout her body due to the creature's bite. After walking a short distance, they see a creature in front of them. Mandy tries to touch it, thinking it is dead, but Tyler stops her. Suddenly, the creature comes out of the ground and grabs Mandy's feet, pulling her towards it. Tyler and David hold Mandy tightly. Laura shoots the creature, saving Mandy's life. Garrett convinces David to untie him, saying that he will help them in such situations in the future. But Garrett has a bite on his hand, which he does not tell them. They continue to move forward and finally reach the top of the hill, where Garrett's car is parked. But the view of the city from here is very scary. They quickly get into the car, but when Garrett tries to start the car, it doesn't start. He gets out of the car to check it. Suddenly, many creatures start moving towards them from the hills. Stella takes the gun from David's uncle and gets out of the car because she wants to kill herself before she turns into a creature. David's uncle somehow snatches the gun from his hand and begs him to get in the car, but David pulls him into the car because there is no hope of their survival now. And then the creatures come close and eat Stella, but at the same time the car starts and finally everyone gets out of there alive. Now Garrett takes them to the place with the gate, but there is no one there. Garrett says that the tanks here are filled with salt water to protect from creature attacks. Then they realize that creatures are around them. David tells everyone that there are only 2 hours left before the solar eclipse ends. Garrett says that we should hide in the chemical warehouse because its doors are blast-proof. But as soon as they get out, a creature attacks Garrett. David helps him and shoots the creature. But now hearing this sound, many creatures start coming towards them. Garrett runs away and locks himself in a room and injects some kind of injection to avoid infection. He had kept the door locked from inside. So David takes his family to another room. David decides that he will go through the dispersion lines to the tank and start the flow of salt water from there in the entire pipeline. After that, as David reaches the tank, on the other side, the creatures start breaking down the door and entering the room. So they have to leave from there, but coming out, the creatures surround them from all sides. Then Tyler shoots them to stop them from coming towards him. Then David's voice comes on the loudspeaker, saying to turn on the fire alarm, but the creatures had already come very close to them. So David's uncle bravely faces the creatures with an axe, but the creatures attack them together and kill them. Tyler quickly turns on the fire alarm and salt water starts falling on all the creatures, due to which all of them burn to death. Also, the time of solar eclipse has also ended now. So all the creatures go inside the ground through the gate. Laura, Tyler, and Mandy start leaving from there, but then Garrett blocks their way. Who has now lost his mental balance due to infection. He shoots Tyler in the shoulder. Then David attacks him and knocks him down. And when David goes to his family, then a dangerous creature comes out from below, which jumps on Garrett and swallows him whole. David takes his family to a room and uses the chemicals there to create a gas that works just like salt. When the creature breaks down the door and enters, David releases the chemical gas towards it, which causes the creature to explode and die. David manages to keep himself and his family safe. Later, we are shown that the city is in ruins, but humans are still fully prepared to start anew. And the movie ends here. How did you like this movie? Do tell us by commenting. And do subscribe to our channel.